Hi all, hope all is well. On today's video, I want to take you all the way back to July 2019. At the time, I was working in the Gundawindi area, and we'd been employed to do a job out in the Yelarbon Spinifex desert. So this area is a bit of an anomaly. It's very different from the surrounding area. So as you can see from these satellite images here, it's almost like a desert. And the salinity of the soil is exceptionally high. So it actually indicates that at some point it was an inland sea or perhaps a gigantic lagoon where a lot of water settled and then has evaporated over the years, which increases the salinity of the soil. Now, because obviously of the soil salinity, the vegetation that grows around the area is extremely interesting as well. You get quite a bit of cactus growing in the area, a lot of salt bush as well, so galvanized burr and stuff like that. It's quite an unpleasant looking place, but it is extremely interesting. And as soon as it gets the smallest amount of water, the entire place blooms. So it is, it's a very interesting area for sure. But during this period of time, July 2019, we were employed to do a fence line, as you can see there, running up the left-hand side of that video footage there. Now, the purpose of the installation of the fence was obviously to try and manage livestock. As you'll see in the upcoming footage here, there were quite a few Shetland ponies in one side of the block, and what we could only assume was cattle in the other side, or they were planning on putting cattle into the block next door. But it gave me an opportunity to visit some land that I normally wouldn't even get access to. And it's even questionable whether I should be revealing it on camera. I've been thinking about it for quite a few years on whether I should actually reveal what I've discovered in this landscape. As you can see, it is quite barren, not much grows there. Obviously this livestock, these Shetland ponies, they were being supported by having hay brought in, and they had an active water connection, so they got water. You can see though, early in the mornings there is quite a bit of moisture around. This was during the 2019 droughts, and there was no water anywhere, but in this particular area, you got morning fogs, and the morning fogs allowed for the moss to grow, as you can see in these images here. And it was quite a heavy fog as well. So being July, it was the middle of winter, and there were just anomalies everywhere. Like that bottle, literally that's how we found the bottle, in the ground, in a hole. And why it was there, no one knows. You can see here the lichen on the ground, that lime green lichen, in an area so dry, like nothing should be growing like that. But obviously the morning fogs were enough to sustain it. It was almost like a seaweed, but we were 400 k's inland. Now this image here, you can actually see a scar tree there, that gum tree there with that scar on it. That indicates that there was a presence of traditional owners, Aboriginal Australians in the area, which actually add to the mystery of the area. You can see these beautiful shots here. This was in the afternoon of the first day that we were there. It's obviously an extremely dusty atmosphere. This is a carrion flower, this one here. So this was growing out in the middle of nowhere. It's a carrion cactus. They call it the starfish flower. It attracts insects to it. It was an extremely unusual place for it to be growing. We would have been 10 kilometres from any households or anything like that. So perhaps an existing homestead was out there at one stage and it escaped, or some birds carried it there. I'm not entirely sure, but it just added to the mystery of the place. So yeah, here you can see again the carrion flower itself and the asparagus-like look of the cactus. These images here, I wanted to include them to indicate how hard the ground was. We were actually driving the posts in using an excavator. It just reveals the harshness of the environment. These shots here, these are of some artifacts I found. So you see how flat that artifact there is? Obviously that indicates that it was being used as a grindstone perhaps, or something like that. All artifacts were returned to the ground, of course, but it does indicate that there was a significant presence around this salinity lagoon at some stage, which is not surprising given Australia's history. There is also a history of tree burials in the area as well. I recall going through some books about the local history of the Goondiwindi area, and I come across a book that was written by Walter Gunn, I believe it was, and there was some photographs in there that were quite haunting, where the University of Queensland and the Museum of Queensland had been coming out and actually digging up the remains of Aboriginal people from inside the hollow trees in the area. Now, the reason I'd even mention the tree burials is to add some context to the area. There was obviously quite a significant human presence in the area for a very long time. Potentially, you're talking 20 to 40,000 years. And over that 20 to 40,000 years, this area would have changed significantly. So as you can see here, this is what was extremely interesting about the area. These were pieces of calcium carbonate. They're actually like collections of seashells that have been amalgamated and solidified over time. So it indicates that there was an ancient ocean or an ancient lake in the area. I just couldn't believe I found this. Like, this is a desert environment, and here's this calcium carbonate laying around the bushland everywhere. And it should be mentioned that this is 300 to 400 kilometres inland from the nearest coastline. So there was an ancient ocean through the middle of Australia. You're talking millions of years ago. The Eromanga Desert, it ran from Darwin all the way through to South Australia, and from the centre of Australia out towards Brisbane in Queensland. And this is actually in the pathway between inland Australia and Brisbane. So I'm guessing it may have been an ancient pathway for the old ocean, the Eromanga Ocean. And that could explain why there's calcium carbonate laying around out there everywhere. What I had also noticed was that it appeared as though something had been digging the calcium carbonate deposits up out of the ground. So there were hollows all through the bushland where the calcium carbonate had been dug up out of the ground. Whether the animals had been digging it up or whether people had been digging it up and processing it, because obviously calcium carbonate, when it's fired at high temperatures, you can create hydroxides and could be potentially used for processing of skins, for example. So it just added to the entire mystery of the area. It was an extremely unusual place with so many unanswered questions. It could potentially be a very interesting place for an educated person to go visit, such as a professor of geology, for example, from perhaps the Queensland University. It would definitely be worth having a professional go out to the area to better interpret the area. Perhaps a professor of anthropology, for example, as well, if they could all get together and go have a discussion about what actually went on in this area during ancient times. I could only imagine, you go back 20,000 years ago, what this place must have looked like. Perhaps even an artist's impression of what the area looked like 20,000 years ago, 40,000 years ago, would be absolutely fantastic to see. And that's pretty much it for today's video. I know I haven't presented anything scientific or anything like that, but hopefully it's just an amalgamation of interesting points about an area I was fortunate enough to visit some time ago, so 2019. With a bit of luck, someone watching this may pass it on to the right person, and then they can better interpret the findings that I've found in the area. I like to document what I see, and that's what I've done here. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, or if you found anything interesting in the video, please comment below, give it a thumbs up, like and subscribe. As always, thanks for listening. Cheers, bye.